Welcome to Alberta to Arizona. I'm Tracie Gray, real estate investor. This is my husband, real estate agent and investor. Which order we're going to put it in? Investor originally with me. Now he's a professional real estate agent with Mogul Realty Group and EXP. And then down in the States, we've got Diane Brennan with the Phoenix Scottsdale area. And she's with Coldwell Banker, also professional real estate agent, not married to her though, but we were roommates at one time. Diane, thanks for
Well, you
joining
could
us.
just say not married. That would describe me too. Perfect.
Just not married.
Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've never been married. Devin and I have.
No.
So we're up here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and we're talking about the differences between buying and selling real estate across the border. So Diane, the election obviously in the States has been a huge thing. But you were saying it doesn't really affect politics, or it doesn't really affect real estate.
Well, with whatever party gets elected, we haven't had any winners declared here because we've had ballots and issues and ballots not counting stuff and all that stuff. So we did have one proposition that had to do with veterans and them not having to pay as much property taxes as someone else. So that's a proposition that is up, but we don't have any winners yet. We've had ballot problems again. It's been a bit of a hot mess. So, will it affect real estate? Sure, depending on who's in power. But anything directly, I mean, the proposition would affect veterans on taxes and stuff. But it's interesting. I don't talk politics very much down here, so it's a really divisive issue. Even with friends and stuff, I just have a policy that I don't discuss it whatsoever because it's such a trigger here for a lot of people. I had one friend that put a sign up in her yard and had somebody drop off dog poop on it. She was really mad. And I said, well, why are you putting a sign up? You know what I mean? Like, why are you putting a sign up? She goes, because I should be able to say what I want and who I stand for. And I'm tired of being quiet. I said, okay, well, then you're gonna have to deal with the dog poop, people putting dog poop by your sign. It's crazy. So I just, my clients have differing political views from each other. I never discuss it. I won't even discuss it with friends because I've gotten it into it. And working in talk radio, I'm just tired of opinionated people. I mean, I voted. I'm really glad I did. My heart was full when I was standing in line, and because I became a US citizen and know what it took to do that. And I know that other countries aren't as fortunate as we are to have a democracy and the right to vote. So that was a really proud moment for me as a citizen waiting in line and seeing everybody else spend an hour in line. So that was great. And I love the process and stuff, but talking about specifics, I'm happy to discuss when a law is passed and how that affects us and stuff. But right now, nothing concrete. And I can't even speculate as to who becomes governor, like what could happen. So.
Well, it's interesting because, and great to get yes, you're a U.S. citizen, but you're also a Canadian citizen and grew up here. And interesting to get firsthand experience of what's going on down there, because it's just something we see on TV. Mm-hmm. And you see the news with all of the extreme right opinions, and then you get, a lot of the entertainment industry that's clearly on the left, and you watch the most recent Saturday Night Live, and if you watch John Oliver and those types of things, and how they are framing things of what could potentially happen. So it'll be interesting to catch those shows coming up this weekend, because obviously we'll be able to have some election results and some not. But it's been quite the thing to watch up here. And curious to see how it's going to end. I also find it interesting that there's just so many things you have to vote on, congressmen and senators and governors and propositions and various things like that. And then when it's the presidential election, there's just one thing to vote on. And then they just dump everything else into this one. So this one must be a little bit laborious to stay on top of everybody that you have to vote for. Because don't you also vote for sheriff and school trustees and all of that stuff? Doesn't all that stuff?
the sheriff not this year.
Okay.
The one thing I have a tough time with, they do a fantastic job of giving you the information, and you can watch the local news, but the election itself really has a great put together a great information package that they email out with what the proposition is, people's arguments are for it and what people's arguments are against it. So that really helps out with the propositions, even if you don't watch any TV. The difficulty I have are with the judges. So we have a whole huge list of judges and you have to reelect them. And it's like, yes or no. It's like you have no idea. So they do have lawyers or a team of lawyers that give them a percentage of how they've been doing their job. But that's the one I find difficult. It's like, I don't know. So unless I get arrested and sentenced and I'm unhappy with the judge, I really don't know how the judge is doing.
Which, Diane, I mean, could happen.
That could very well happen. So yeah, the proposition, and it's Veterans Day here today. I know you guys are wearing your poppies for Memorial Day or for Remembrance Day. It's tomorrow. So today is Veterans Day. You guys asked me, when's the holiday? I'm like, I don't know, last week. So anyways, I'm trying to recoup myself this week.
You guys in the US are good about having holidays on Thursdays, so you can just extend it into a 4-day weekend. You do the same thing with Thanksgiving.
Yeah, but you guys get you guys get a holiday every month. We don't.
Oh, that's well, sometimes twice in a month, it seems. We've got Truth and Reconciliation Day now, which is like the last of September, and then 2 weeks later we're into Thanksgiving. So
and they added Family Day a few years ago, and
so you guys have it better. We have fewer, but we make more time of it. Absolutely.
That's true.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Our kids have a 5-day weekend coming right now, so they're not minding it at all.
Well, at least your kids are old enough to stay by themselves, right?
Yes, that makes a huge difference, because when you're a working parent, like we both are, and your kids are off school, they're excited about it. But then you go, what do I do? Right? You can only take so many days off.
For sure.
Then we have to roll the dice. Okay, flip a coin? Who's staying home this time?
You were mentioning about it being Veterans Day down there, and there was a veterans proposition.
Yes, about property taxes, if you're a veteran in here. So I think that's overwhelmingly being voted on. Yes, that they will be able to save on their property taxes down here. So an interesting proposition down here was, and let me know what you guys feel about this. It was to help people in rural communities with first responders and the fire department we were going to increase our sales tax by 0.01 cent. Here I go saying, I don't get involved in politics, and look at me explain this proposition.
Right, you're getting right in there now, Diane. I hate to tell you.
So this was interesting because the argument was it was to help rural fire departments. And so the argument for was like, help people in rural communities with their fire response and their equipment. And then the argument against was, well, hey, you decided to live in the country. You know what I mean? So we decide to live in the city that are close to resources like hospitals, fire, police, So it's like the argument against was, why should the whole state and people in cities pay for people who have decided to live in the country? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. That would be one to really think about for a second. Initially, when you're talking about it, I'm thinking, well, of course, absolutely, everybody should be taken care of. But then on the other hand, you're going, yeah, that's right. If you chose to live 3 hours out in the boonies on a gravel road, I think it's the same.
So to get away from you, they moved away to get away from us.
We'll take your money, but
it's interesting because
kind of like Quebec separating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right.
What popped into my head was how they started to charge people that were, say rock climbing or outside of designated areas. They're like, oh, we're going to go underneath this rope into the deep backwoods of the mountains, and then the next thing you know, they get stranded, and they have to spend thousands of dollars to come rescue them. Apparently, they pass that bill on to those people now. So it's like, look, you're the one that decided to go and make this really, really difficult for us to save you. And so it's interesting about that's what popped into my head in regards to talking about this, that, you're right. You've gone out and purposely wanted to get away from everybody and make it really difficult to, so anyways, I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing. That would be one that would be a good debate. And I'm sure that there's
for sure. And there's a lot of, the people that argue against it, they said there's not a lot of accountability to how the budget is spent. So it's kind of like in Canada, we have this too, and we've worked with or in government departments. We're like, hey, this is our budget. We don't have enough to spend it. So let's just make sure we keep spending it so we get the same amount next year. And then you're kind of spending it on things you don't really need, just so you don't lose that
Yeah.
money. So we all are familiar with that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's a definite one for government. I remember that, yeah, because I think the fiscal year end in Alberta is March 31st. And so it was always the spending month in the month of March, while everybody was frantically trying to make sure they spent the money they hadn't spent yet, to make sure they didn't lose that for the
Right. So our systems, both of our systems are broken. So
It's interesting what also comes up in Canada in terms of, when they say, oh, there's all these different propositions all over the place. And I remember, I think top three of what was on one of the national news was how Colorado is voting to see if they want to legalize mushrooms.
oh yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
It's
How did
just
that
funny
turn
about all
out?
these different, you're talking about no property taxes for veterans and all these other things. And that's what gets promoted in Canada.
Priorities, right?
The weird ones.
Because of course we're legal all across
Mhm.
Canada for marijuana, cannabis. And so it's almost like, it's like, come on, join the party. We got 5 or 6 more states looking to vote for legalizing marijuana, and one's looking at mushrooms. So
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, funny. Well, I guess that's a broad interest, right? Because
it
that's
is
funny.
broad, and it's
you
good
know.
for, and look, now we're talking about it, right?
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
guys, unless we brought up the argument about like, hey, if this happened in your community, how would you vote? Right? People wouldn't really be that interested.
Yeah. That's, I mean, coming back to this rescue situation or first responders. That's a good one. I can see that working. And even if it got voted one way or the other, I could constantly see it being, because of course there'll be a story about it, that somebody perished if it got, say, voted against and somebody perished. And that would potentially be, I could see that being a news story about, well, if this thing got voted in, then there would have been first responders, this person would have been alive. That's a tough one for sure.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
any update in regards to when all of the votes might be finished? We keep hearing days. Although I know I think it's Georgia, they're talking about a runoff vote on December 6th or something like that, which I don't understand what that is. I'm not expecting you to either, but it sounds like another vote. It just sounds like they're dragging.
Did you see my eyes?
Yes, runoff vote. Huh? Where's Georgia?
So, okay. I have to look. I haven't heard that about Georgia. So a runoff vote means that they're voting again?
I believe so. Yeah. Because
Okay.
that's where Herschel Walker is running for a senator, I believe. And it's too close to call between him and the other person. So
Now I got to Google this.
Doesn't sound like you're going towards that in Arizona. It's just...
Well, they're close. They're close, our governor, but I don't.
But no runoff vote. No runoff vote has been.
Okay, so the 2 top vote getters will face each other in a runoff election to be held 4 weeks after the general election. So they're voting again. So ours is close. Let me see. Arizona election update. Let me tell you, because when people are looking at this, it's going to be dated. So as of now, we don't have a declared winner. So yeah, they're talking days. I think there was 17,000 votes that needed to be counted. So hopefully that's days. I know that my friends, when I didn't have a problem with my voting ballot, so you fill out your circles and then you put it in this machine and then it reads it and then it tells you whether it worked or not. So my friend went there and then her machine, when she put her stuff in, it wasn't working. So then it's like,
Ooh, that's not good.
and then you would think, well, just put it in a basket and someone will count it later. And then people are like, well, no, because then you don't trust the person you give it to. And there's a real insecurity here about voting, about the voting process and security, which
more so now than ever.
Which we're voting on to change, by the way, is one of the propositions.
Let's put that to a vote.
Because a lot of the times, one of the votes is, so you have one proposition, so it's one idea, but a lot of times they'll tack on a whole bunch of things onto that one proposition, just like bills. You know what I mean? The bill is this, but then there's 40 other things that you really don't want to happen.
Slide it under for sure.
Yeah. So they're trying to change the proposition that it's one idea, one proposition and stuff. So that's one of the propositions we're voting on too. So interesting thing that happened with Scottsdale City Council when it has to regards to short-term rentals like Airbnb and VRBO or Verbo, they call it. Scottsdale's made some changes, and they are also doing this with some other Valley cities, but there's going to be a limit to how many people you can have in your property. 6 adults and their kids. And I'm like, that's a huge property.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I guess people have been cramming more than that into the homes. You have to have working smoke detectors, and you now have to register your business with the city of Scottsdale if you're going to do an Airbnb and stuff. So we've got Super Bowl coming up, so that's going
Is
to
that
be
in Arizona? Is that in Phoenix this year?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
So
Guess who's coming to visit you,
Yeah,
Diane?
that'll be a party weekend because that's also when the Phoenix Open takes place that same weekend, correct?
yeah, for sure. So the helicopters go from the Waste Management Open over. You see the line of them, of all the rich people going in their choppers to Westgate. So it's pretty cool.
So you can watch for Diane and her helicopter.
Yeah,
flying,
right.
Guys, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wish. Working on that. Won't happen for this Super Bowl, but might be on track for 40-40. Just kidding.
Well, the election's definitely big news in the States. Doesn't seem to really be affecting real estate market very much down there. In Canada right now, what definitely is affecting us is the cold spell. We got our first big dump of snow here in Edmonton last week. And so that definitely slows down the real estate market because nobody likes to move in the snow. And now we're getting the -15, -20 temperatures. And so that's another one where people don't like to move when it's cold, and they don't like to volunteer to help their friends move when it's cold. So
this is when I should have a billboard up. Remember a long time ago, I had that billboard idea when it was 40 below saying, come to Arizona. Here's the temperature.
Put your billboard up, Diane.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it definitely slows things down here. But you're right. That's a great time for people to be buying down in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. And then in Edmonton, I mean, yeah, we've got the cold temperatures, but you can get some great deals right now too. So it's never necessarily a bad time for the market.
Yeah, well, it's actually we get a lot of investors that start coming out of the woodwork around this time, especially some flippers that will come and start looking at properties now and move into them and fix them up over the winter time and get them ready for spring selling season.
So are a lot of the flippers, they move in and do the work themselves? It's not like they're trusting other contractors.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of both. I mean, there's some people like we've got, and this goes back over several years of clients that the owner of Mogul, James Canal, has cultivated, where basically they buy a house sometime in October or November, move into it, take possession in December, live in it, renovate it, and have it ready for spring selling season, sell it in March or April, make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and then go and enjoy life.
Does James offer counseling and marital counseling and therapy for couples that move in together?
These are all single people. Yeah, these are
okay.
Well, we did a flip last year.
No, I'm talking about these guys that are on this.
But did you like it, Tracy?
You know what I did, but Diane, we hired a contractor, so that's why we're still married. The contractor was certainly the most expensive part of our renovations. However, it was worth every penny just to know that we had a professional that knew what he was doing. He has over 100 properties that he's bought and fixed up and sold, so he gets it. Like, he understands what it's like to be sitting there with a house on the market. You want it to sell fast because your cash flow is depreciating for every day, every week, every month that it's sitting there waiting to be sold. So he got the urgency of our timeline. He did all the renovations exactly as we asked. And then we gave him quite the property too. There was lots of squatters that were living in it, and they tried to keep coming back. So fortunately, he's a big guy. He's super nice, like one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet, but he was a good deterrent to stop them from coming back because he's this really big guy. I think
like muscles.
Scared. Yeah.
Is he single?
Really tall. Really tall. Yeah.
So great, you guys. I was going to ask you guys about trades up there, and if you had a problem with that. We have a huge issue with trades here and contractors.
Yeah, trades became a huge problem through COVID because the government was issuing money for people for them not to work. And so with the trades, it made it really hard, especially, and this is from what our contractor was saying, is he would have it fully lined up for somebody to come and paint or do the tiling or whatever, and they just wouldn't show. And they would phone him and say, I'm coming and I'm going to do it. And then when he finally got a hold of them, they'd say, I'm getting paid whether I work or not, so I'm good. I'm just going to take this summer off or this week off. And then he'd try and get them for another job, and then they wouldn't show again. So that was making it difficult in the trades because people weren't really necessarily motivated to work. If you earned over a certain amount in a month, then you didn't qualify for this money from the government. So that became an issue, but that was all industries. And that was across Canada that made it difficult.
It's not as bad as it was in the spring. In the spring, it was just crazy. But people were waiting 4 weeks, 6 weeks to get projects started because there was such a lack of trades, because there were so many people wanting to do renovations. But it's calmed down now for sure, because the market's slowed. Just less people doing less things, because the cost of borrowing money is so much more expensive.
What was kind of a bigger issue was trying to get stuff for renovations because of COVID. People were home staring at their houses.
This is still a bit of a concern.
Going, I want to repaint, or let's do that roof. And they were home, they couldn't travel anywhere. So people were doing massive, extensive renovations to their homes. So you couldn't get appliances. It was months and months to get appliances, months and months to get countertops and cabinets for your kitchen, months and months to get the toilet you wanted, right? So any renovations that you were planning, you would have to put that in the timeline, that it could be 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 months before you could get in. Baseboards was one I heard there was a shortage of. Nails. You were saying.
So Americans are laughing at you guys right now, because you're like 4 to 6 weeks. We're like, that's nothing. Appliances, 3, 4, 5 months. We're like at 9, 10 months.
Oh, okay, so you guys are seeing that too.
It's but it's still a huge problem. So contractors are so busy that even my Canadian clients are putting in a pool in their beautiful home, and nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. So I think trades are thin, they're overworked. There's so much work that I don't understand why contractors just don't underestimate or overestimate. Do you know what I mean? Rather than underestimate. Yeah, for sure, we'll get it done, because then they get the job and then they underdeliver. I'm like, just overestimate. Tell them it's going to take longer, and then everyone's nicely surprised. So,
and actually, our contractor was really great about that. He was very open about how long stuff was going to take. He would let me know when somebody didn't show up. You know, say, I don't know how long it'll be before I get someone in there. And oftentimes he stepped in and did the work.
Well, and people are just happy with communication and an explanation, and then you're willing to wait. So I had clients who moved into a new build. There was no communication. It was incredibly frustrating. And I had a great conversation with the national vice president of sales, and, told them, if people just tell us, we're okay with that. We understand supply chain issues and all of that, but just being ignored, just like in a relationship, personal relationship, it's the same in business. Just give us some attention. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Your contractor sounds like a unicorn. Congratulations.
Yeah. So thanks. Like I said, we ended up spending a lot on a contractor, but it was worth every penny, because he put up with the frustration of someone who didn't show and when he's going to move the next timeline, and then he would get a hold of us. So he was very much on his toes. And because he's a professional contractor, he had connections for the appliances. So he actually ordered them the day we bought the house. He actually ordered them.
Well, give him a shout out, because everybody wants to know who he is.
Yeah.
Well, his name is Ulko Franken from Franken Homes. And so he's on the Mogul power team, and he is a home builder. He does infills. So he certainly gets hired out to do anything from full gut renovations like we did. He'll put legal suites in for investors that are wanting to suite out properties. But he also will, for anybody that wants to go and buy one of these, 80-year-old houses in town, subdivide it, build two brand new houses, or if you get a corner lot, potentially build a fourplex. He does all that. So again, it's Franken Homes, and it's Ulko Franken. Who's
you
just
email Devin if you didn't get
10 weight. He's looking fantastic.
He's looking really amazing. Good. Yeah.
He's dropped about 60 pounds. So okay.
But he is married, Diane. Sorry.
All right. And if people want him for his contracting work, you can just get a hold of Devin. How do they get a hold of you to get Franken's information?
Yeah, just reach out to me on my cell at 780-951-9279, or on email Devin, DEVIN @mogulrg.com.
And likewise to you, Diane, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, and we'll have this information in the show notes too. My email is can'trememberheremail@gmail.com, and my number is 602-620-2277. And I'm with Coldwell Banker. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, anyone in Canada that wants to get away from the cold. And then Diane, you were starting to say with Coldwell Banker.
Yeah, I'm just with Coldwell Banker Realty. I have to say that to make this legal.
Great. All right. Well, this was awesome. Thanks for an awesome show. And thank you guys for watching. Ilko, if you're watching, you are the best. Thanks. And we'll see you
Move
next.
to the US. We need you.
Oh,
here.
no, stay here.
We can fly him back and forth.
Yeah, see, that's why I hesitated giving his name, because when you get someone good like that, you don't want to get them too busy because then they can't work for you.
Right, exactly.
We'll,
All right,
we'll
you guys.
share it. We'll share it.
We'll
Yeah,
talk to you guys.
try to get a contractor out of a full-time investor. It's impossible.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. He's what's their contact info? No,
No.
I'm
I tell you, it's like having a good property manager. You never give that information away.
Yeah,
When you get
exactly.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right, you guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will
Thanks.
talk to you next week.
Bye.